Welcome to Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Holy Fuck. Two gals on the prowl for enlightenment, sex, and all things holy. Holy Fuck. Each week, beauty alchemist and transformational coach and speaker, Katherine McClelland, and spiritual healer and life coach, Krista Kim, discuss navigating spiritual consciousness in a real human body. Stumbling through dating, relationships, and everyday life, all while maintaining a fucking sense of humor. All right. Can't wait to hear
What was
about
it last night? They were saying our song should be something, I'm too sexy for my body. Too sexy for... Anyway.
I'm just sexy enough for my body. Keep me out of trouble.
Keep me out of trouble. Yeah. So today we're going to start with breasts, baby.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about...
We're all vaginaed out.
Although we're going to have to make a caveat because we are going there after a little bit. But first we're starting with breasts. So it just came into my awareness that a friend of mine is having some issues with some breast lumps. And as I sat and kind of tuned into it, I realized how scared we get around the even idea of breast lumps. We're like, oh my God,
right.
Oh my God, oh my God. And so since I've had two interesting.
What are interestings? I was about to say like
interesting,
extraterrestrial.
I've had two breast lumps that I've had to interact with in my life, and both of them ended up being benign, and one of them was pretty simple, but the other one was much more involved. And it was amazing because I want to just tell this story. I just remembered about getting a second opinion. So my first one was right after my child was born. It was actually a very big lump. They went in, they took it out. It was nothing. I was so exhausted from childbirth that I don't even really remember it, and I never got scared.
Right.
Nothing happened. I don't know what that was. And obviously I did nurse on one breast for a while, but other than that, it was nothing. And because I was so exhausted and focused on the baby, I never thought about it. So it just was almost like a non-event. The second time was, about 5 or 7 years ago. And I went and had a regular something was happening with my breasts, and they felt irregular. And then they found this tiny, tiny, tiny little spot that was a little lump in my ductal system, which is called a papilloma. And I was like, oh my God. And I started freaking out, and my doctor sent me to a specialist, and I went to see a man. And I was a little like, oh, really? A breast specialist is a man?
Of course. Every high school student's dream job.
If you're between 15 and 18, you will understand this job description. So I went to see him, and he got really nervous, and he said that he wanted to remove my entire duct system from both of my breasts for this one tiny little papilloma.
Wow.
And I freaked, as you can imagine. And he said, well, you'll have a flattened aspect. Do you know what that means?
I have no idea.
That means you'll have skin and no fluff inside your boobs. Aspect meaning the side view.
Ew, because every woman wants that.
Every woman wants to look like that, especially when she's just turning 50. Really, really
right.
Exciting time to have that happen. So I was freaked out, but it didn't occur to me to get a second opinion. I was just going with him because my doctor said, no. And one of my friends just kept saying, every time she saw me, she's like, second opinion? Second opinion? It probably happened 4 times. And finally I was like, all right. And I went and I found this other doctor, and she was like, no, absolutely not. They did this crazy procedure. Okay, I'm going to tell you, but it's crazy. They stuck this tiny little wire in through my nipple to point, I know, right? To point at the tiny little papilloma so that she could cut right around and reach in and pluck it out. It was so tiny. And then they could biopsy it. And in all of that, the only chance of it being something cancerous was 10%.
Wow. Thank you, friend.
I know. Who my friend was just like over and over. So we're saying this is a public service announcement. Second opinions, please, on anything that you're getting done with doctors, especially if you're not sure. If you feel, but I would say anytime.
Listen to your intuition.
Anytime. So she was a fantastic doctor. She did it. She's like, this is nothing. You're cool. You're out. The funniest thing happened to me on the way out of the surgery, though. A friend of mine was driving me home.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, this is really weird, but I'm kind of coming out of the anesthesia and my breast is bandaged and, everything's okay. And I'm just having sexual feelings all over the place.
Wow.
I'm like, what? And my friend is not sexy who is driving me home. I mean, not to me. She's not. She's a girl and that doesn't do it for me. So I was just like, what is going on with me? And I was literally having these, I don't know if you guys have ever had these moments when you really feel like you're kind of going to jump out of your body. You have so many sexual feelings going on. And I could not figure it out. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, people have been messing with my breast for hours in surgery. I just thought it was the funniest thing.
The fact that you were under anesthesia, too, is interesting that your body can still connect to those feelings without your conscious mind. Yeah, I guess it was your subconscious mind knew that you were being fondled.
Isn't that hilarious?
Subconscious fondling. But then when you come into your conscious mind, it's like, it's still there.
I know. It was so funny that the endocrine system or whatever it is that does all that work in our bodies.
Yours is very active.
Mine was very active, and it was just so funny. I really thought, what a surprising thing to happen from breast surgery. Now, imagine if it had been a bigger surgery, it might have overridden those effects.
Right.
But I doubt anybody has ever talked about this phenomenon. So if any of you out there have had this experience or have talked about this or know of it, I would love you to share right here, however we've set that up, for you to tell us about it, because it was too funny.
I hope it has a really funny name, like, what was the goosebump term?
Oh, piloerection.
Yes. So I hope this phenomena of waking up from surgery horny has a fun title.
I know. When you have breast surgery, have you woken up feeling really horny?
So you were sexy, even though you were like coming out of surgery. You were.
I must have been sending off like pheromone antenna all over the place, but I went home and went to bed, so it eventually went away. But
cool.
So one of the points I wanted to make about this is that when you get a diagnosis that there is a lump in your breast, it isn't necessarily something that you are going to have a life-changing event around. Really holding space, praying, all the stuff that we've talked about around our vaginas are true around your breasts.
Well, I'm so glad we didn't have to talk about your vagina today.
I know.
To talk about your boobies, but I guess we could give a little update on my vagina.
Yes, I think we need to bring her in.
Yeah, so good news. I went and had my little procedure and just so grateful for the work that we did spiritually around your vagina, my vagina, because when I went into the procedure, the doctor literally, same thing happened to me that happened to you, of course. She goes in, she's like, I don't really see anything. I don't know what they're talking about. And she's searching and searching. I'm like, yeah, why don't you just go on an excavation here? I'll just be here.
I got my book.
Yeah, exactly. And she finds this tiny spot. She kind of giggles looking at it. She's like, really? And then she goes, well, I'll biopsy it anyways. And she could barely biopsy it because it's so small. And the whole time I was giggling inside going like, of course you're not going to find anything because I did not give it power.
Right.
We worked it and it's not there. So I am still waiting for the biopsy. So I don't know what they'll come back with, but I do know what they'll come back with. It's not going to be shit.
It's certainly not going to be shit because we are not looking in that hole.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear, Krista.
They're going to see me again in 6 months and it's going to be done. Same way as my thyroid, the same way with your diagnosis because we are doing the spiritual work.
Okay, you want to know what's weird? I had a thyroid thing last year too.
Shut up.
Shut up. Krista and I we have a doppelganger thing. I don't know. We don't so much exactly look alike, but we have a doppelganger thing where we have a lot of synchronicities and similarities in our lives.
I was just about to ask you, like, what's the other thing that we were talking about recently that happened to both of us? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, we're going to save that one. Maybe next week we'll be lucky enough to talk about that. But because
it's a big one, too.
It's a big one, but we're not bringing out the big one today.
Teaser. Stay tuned.
Bringing out the big one. Okay. All right. So
let's talk size.
Oh. Well, of what? Breasts? Oh, we could talk size of breasts first.
We could.
All right.
I did just have a friend who had a breast lift. I don't know what the technical term for that is.
Breast lift.
Breast lift, yeah. And the interesting thing is, I was like, oh, did you go bigger? And she was like, no, not at all. Not that I'm judging one way or another, but that was surprising to me because I was kind of like, well, if you're going through all the trouble to like have someone cut into your boobs, I just assumed everyone would want to go bigger. And she didn't, but it was all about, she was just basically lifting them up from years of nursing babies and all of that. And the interesting thing is I mentioned it to a man and his response was, I can't believe they would, I would never do that surgery. And I'm sitting there going like, if you had 3 kids suck on your dick for 10 years and then your balls and junk were hanging down to your knees, come talk to me then.
Yeah, it's a little hard to have empathy in that situation, I think, because it is slightly different.
For sure. And how much the look of our breasts affect our psyche about ourselves.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. We haven't talked about any kind of size and shape issues with breasts ever, I don't think. And
not even just breasts, bodies too.
Well, bodies too, absolutely. So we've been exploring the topic between ourselves, just kind of wandering into it and talking about it. What is it that makes you or us feel sexy? And do we feel sexy because we're slender? And is it our circumstances or our culture that's telling us we're sexy? Do we let ourselves feel sexy when we're around her? Do we let ourselves have our sexiness given to us by men? Like, you're sexy. I want you to be heavier. I want you to be rounder.
I mean, I've had my journey with it. I've gone anywhere from, I've been a span of probably 30 pounds in the last 5 years, meaning I've been ultra rail thin, which at the time I think had a little bit to do with my thyroid. And then I've been on the heavier end this year, or not this year, the year before, which in hindsight, I can look back and go, oh, it was very much due to relationship circumstances. Mm-hmm. But I have to say that no matter if I was at the low end of the weight or the high end of the weight, I felt surprisingly sexy on both ends. When I was really thin, my boobs were non-existent and looked like tube socks that would swing around. And so that part didn't feel super great on me, but my tummy was nice and flat and I looked really cute. And
hot in jeans and shorts.
Yeah,
and
exactly. And then when I was on the heavier end for myself, my boobs were big and juicy and my butt and hips were juicy. And I felt very voluptuous and sexy in that form as well.
Yeah. And one thing that I was thinking about too, Krista, is what you weigh actually doesn't have to have anything to do with how sexy you feel. And so as we're playing around with this idea, you guys in our audience, you ladies and men, for your body's sake, what do you feel sexy about? Like for me, one of the things that I feel the sexiest is when I'm at a pool in the sun. I guess I can be at the beach too. But when I'm in the sun in a bikini and the sun is hitting my body and I'm basically like, I'm naked in public. Every once in a while, I'll get into a situation where I have to hug a man, not my partner, in a pool or a beach situation. And I'm suddenly aware of how naked we are. It's kind of a very strange
thing. And I'm just
thing.
the opposite of you. I don't feel as sexy in a bikini as I feel naked. And I think that this is a social kind of issue, meaning when we see women, like say on the Sports Illustrated, and they're in the bikini, there's a certain image.
With Photoshop.
Yes, with Photoshop. We have a certain image of what you should look like in a bikini. And for some reason, that's in my head. Whereas I don't see naked pictures all over the place. And so I don't know. There's just like a different expectation.
It's so funny that you say that, Krista, because I'm going to segue and talk about Raw Naked Beauty for a second, because I have a business called Raw Naked Beauty. And the way this business started was I had seen 2 women earlier in the day and they were wearing regular clothes, but they were kind of wearing boy clothes, like sweatpants and T-shirts that didn't fit their bodies. And they didn't look particularly attractive. They looked overweight. I just kind of noticed, because I notice everything. I just noticed that and I was like, That night, we were at a place where it was clothing optional. We were at a retreat center, and they were in a pool, naked, and the lights were on in the pool. And so as I walked by, I could see their bodies from above, and it just took my breath away. And I was, oh my goodness, they are so beautiful. And that was the inspiration for this business, where I wanted women, and I still do, I want women to see how incredibly beautiful they are naked. And so this business is called Raw Naked Beauty, and we spend a day together, and we go through all of our old beliefs, and we kind of pull them all out and throw them all up and get rid of them.
Yeah.
And then experience ourselves in this super sacred, prayerful, beautiful, holy way in our bodies. And then we do a naked photo shoot. Now, the coolest part about it is you're covered when the photo shoot starts with these beautiful scarves that we pick out, and you pick out your own. And then you take them off when you feel empowered and ready. So no one tells you have to. So I've gotten everything from a woman who never took them off ever in the whole photo shoot. So we took lots of pictures of her face and her ears and her hands and her legs, and they were gorgeous. And her body was still covered. And the other extreme, where some people just literally are like, I don't need these. And they just jump up and they have so much fun. And it is not necessarily the people you think it's going to be. Right. So we create this super safe environment. We have this really nurturing day. And when people get these pictures, when women get these pictures, they can't believe what they're seeing.
And they can't deny.
And they can't deny their beauty. And that's when, thank you for saying that, because this is a passion of mine. Krista heard me share about it the very first time I ever shared about it. And I was like, I need women to see how beautiful they are. And I know I have issues with things that aren't beautiful, but it's really important to me for women to know that no matter what our size, no matter what our shape, these two women that started this in my mind were beautiful, round, lovely, delicious, voluptuous women that in clothes, they just didn't translate. But in nakedness, there was nothing that wasn't gorgeous about it. And I want to put that in our listeners' minds too. It's like, you can be slender. And like, some of my favorite times in my life was when I was super, super thin and I had almost no boobs, and I could just jump around and be silly and wear cute little tops and tight little bra tops and stuff that I didn't really look like I had much in the breast department. They still worked sexually. I was just fine, but I just didn't have much. And I still felt really sexy because my body felt really great in my tight jeans. And again, for me, bikinis at the pool, I always feel like I'm naked, and that's fun.
Well, let's be clear. You are stunning in your bikini.
Well, thank you, my darling. But it's more the feeling of being at the pool with the sun on my body. And I think it's because I grew up outside by pools. And when I was 13 and my whole estrogens and everything were coming on, that was my environment. And we were all kind of playing touch under the water.
Yeah, we were. Oh, I have a good story.
You remember that
one? We called it crab in at my municipal pool where I grew up. And I had two boys that I grew up with all through elementary and high school. And we would spend the summers. One of us would sit in the corner of the pool or stand in the corner of the pool with our legs apart. And the game was that somebody would swim between the legs and you would have to come up behind the person without touching them. And if you touched the legs, then the crab would happen. Legs would clamp down on the person, right? Well, there were many bubbles.
Crabs.
There were lots of bubbles blown as we would go through the tunnel, the crab tunnel.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, our game wasn't quite to that level, but there was a lot of like, oh, I'm just reaching for the water polo ball. Oh, I've got to grab you and dunk you under the water and all of that. Because you're almost naked in a bathing suit, there's a lot of sexual vibration going on. And I really just want to make the point that whatever makes you feel sexy, do it.
I look back at that age, though, when I was a young teen, and I remember feeling fat.
I know.
And I was probably 113 or 14 pounds. And I remember being very concerned about my stomach and my butt and all of that stuff. And I look back and go, what in the hell was I thinking? It's like I wasted all of those good years feeling like crap about myself or being concerned about my body, to the point where if I went to the beach, I was the girl in the huge boy t-shirt covering up my bathing suit. So when I look back on like pictures of beach week, there's all these girls of many different sizes and they're just out there in their bikinis rocking it. And here I was, tiny, covered in this big dumpy t-shirt because I thought I was fat.
So do any of you other ladies out there have had any experiences like this? And notice, like, do you let yourself actually fully enjoy your body or do you judge it? You know, where is your line? Where do you hold yourself like, oh, I couldn't possibly be beautiful? One of the most shocking things someone said to me once was, your beauty is independent of your weight. And I was like, what? No, I'm fat. I can't be pretty. She's like, no, you're just as pretty right now as you were a year ago. But
that's what
just
you kept
have a
saying to
bigger,
me.
rounder body. I know I was saying it to you.
Maybe I had just started getting to know you a lot better too as I was gaining the weight. So I don't think you knew me when I was ultra thin. You probably knew me when I was moderately thin. And so there was a slow progression of the weight coming on, which for me, the weight came from emotional. I wasn't intentionally eating to gain weight, but it was like my body was putting on the weight out of protection.
Yeah.
I was with a partner that I didn't feel safe with, and the weight was like, oh, maybe if I just gain a little bit more, they won't want to be with me or they'll stay away. And so I just kept gaining and gaining and gaining, and turns out he didn't care.
Turns out he liked it better that way.
He liked it better. So, but when I stopped the relationship, it was like the weight the next day, 5 pounds disappeared. My body had been waiting and waiting and waiting for me to get out of the relationship. And the minute I made that step, the body was like, okay, we're safe again. And it just, I didn't even try to lose the weight. It just disappeared.
Yeah, you said that. And I think the thing that's so clear is that a lot of us have kind of a set point weight. We have, you know, and yeah, you can fight with your body and fight with your body. And it's okay to diet and do whatever you do. If you can do it while you still feel sexy, I guarantee you very few people will notice what's happening because you bring the sexy or you don't. And if, like Krista, the gorgeous little tiny 13, 14-year-old at the beach with her T-shirt on, feeling scrawny and or feeling whatever and not being willing to show her body, I had no shame. Like I feel so great in a bikini. When I was a young teenager, I just wore a bikini. And if I was a little heavier, or if I was a little slimmer, I didn't really notice.
Wow. There's such freedom in that.
I had a lot. Yeah, it was really free. When I got older, it wasn't quite the same. Then I got a little more self-conscious. But I got a lot of positive feedback from the boys.
I bet you
no
did.
matter what I was looking like around the middle. So actually, the first negative comment I ever got in a bathing suit was from a mom.
Interesting.
I know. We'd been away on a family vacation. We came back, so I'd probably gained 10 pounds in grease, eating all the greasy food and yumming, loving it. And a mom came, after about 2 weeks, we'd been home and I'd been swimming every day with my boyfriend. And she said, oh, you look so great. You finally lost all that weight you put on your vacation. And I was like, I was
Projection.
so embarrassed. But I was so embarrassed and I felt so shamed. Like I didn't even notice that I had put on all that weight on vacation. I was probably 13. And I was it was like the breaking of innocence. Suddenly I could see myself totally differently. I wonder if that's what started a sort of phase of being aware of my body. Because up until that point, I was like, wear the bikini, don't wear it, I don't care. You know how little kids, their bellies are sticking out and their butts are sticking out and they have their little bikinis on and they don't care. That's kind of how I was until that. So interesting, isn't it? How someone can come in and just insert their negativity into a situation and change your picture.
It's like who you believe yourself to be prior to that comment and then who you believe yourself to be after that comment.
Yeah, it's so curious. And I think we do these things every day without noticing it. We take what we judge ourselves for and pop it out on someone else. And she thought she was giving me a compliment.
Right.
She's like, you look so great now that you lost that weight that you gained on vacation.
I guarantee her husband or boyfriend probably said something similar to her.
Oh, she was an older woman. She had young kids. So she was probably still having a round body from that experience. So it's so interesting how we take our judgments of ourselves and we put them out in the world. We don't even see ourselves doing it. And we think we're complimenting someone. But the backhand of it is, you were so fat 2 weeks ago when you came back from vacation.
Right. It's kind of passive aggressive in a way.
Maybe. I don't even know that she meant, I mean, it's
Did
definitely.
Did she have daughters your age?
No, she didn't. And it was, I swear to you, I know she thought she was giving me a compliment. She just didn't catch the part that was like, you were so fat 2 weeks ago.
I guess somebody needed to come in and start your journey with your body.
I guess so, because up until then, I wasn't conscious about it, and then I had to suddenly be aware. It was like eating the apple, Adam and Eve. Oh, yeah, there you go. Waking us up. I really think there's a huge thing that happens to people about the times. I'd be so curious to map. I want everyone out there to think about this. Is there a time that you remember some form of innocence being broken, and from that point on, you saw yourself with judgment around something that you had never thought about before? Both good or bad. You know, positive, because we have positive judgments. Like when it wasn't until I was in 6th grade and I got a tan and my hair turned blonde in the sun that I turned into this beauty. And when I walked into school in my new school and I had blonde hair and brown skin, I was so popular. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, everything depends on what I look like. You know, and so that nobody even said anything to me at that point. I just felt it.
Right.
Oh, that's who you remind me of.
What?
Oh,
you just gave me this look.
God, that's so funny. Krista
Am I the
reminds
bully
me.
in your school?
No, my best friend in 6th grade. We had so much fun. We were the 2 blonde girls in a class full of boys, and all the other American girls were in a different class. God knows how they did that. But we got a lot of attention that year.
You did.
No school, lots of attention.
The story I was going to say earlier was, I don't know if you remember me when I was putting together my website, like maybe 2 years ago at this point, but it was such a journey for me because I was at my absolute heaviest weight, like a weight that I had never been until I was pregnant. And I had to...
Do you want to tell us what it was?
What the weight is?
Uh-huh.
No, I don't know, because it's not, because I'm a small frame, so that the weight that I was, where I was the heaviest, would sound very light to most people, but I'm a short.
Okay.
I'm a shorty.
You're a shorty. Okay.
Yeah. But I had no clothes that I fit into for that photo shoot.
I remember that day you came over and you said, "This is my last dress.
This is it. This is all I got.
I got to wear this every day."
And it was really a journey for me to become okay with the fact that I'm going to spend money on these photos. I'm spending money on the website and creating my company, and I'm doing it at a time where I physically don't feel my healthiest. And I know I was emotionally not as healthy either, right? Because of what I was going through in my personal life. So here I was really having to become okay with, I'm not going to let my weight stop me from moving forward in this next phase. Because in a way, it was almost like then I would be letting my ego take over.
Yeah, and also just your self-judgment. This is what we were talking about. I knew Krista at this time. She's beautiful. And she was still beautiful. I mean, I get that it was her last dress that fit, and that can be kind of a crisis. But you were still beautiful. And that your body was rounder and all of that. But what the concern is that we are all beautiful. We are all different weights and sizes, and much of that is in some ways out of our control. Do we define ourselves by that? You in that moment just said, to heck with it. I've got to get some empowerment going here. I'm going to go step into doing my website. I'm going to take these pictures.
Yeah, I really said to myself, if I can step out in my life at this stage, I can step out in any stage.
Good for you.
And I've kept the pictures up, and I am juicier in them. But I also look at some of those pictures and go like, fuck, I was sexy in those pictures.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
And yet it only takes one comment. I think my son saw my website the other day and he goes, you were fat in that picture, right? Out of the mouths of babes. And I just kind of giggled and I was like, yeah, I was a little chunkier at that point. But I'm like, look how pretty my smile was. I mean, I tried to like turn it around really quick, but...
Yeah, it's a tricky thing in our culture. And also just when we were talking about bathing suits before, and you were saying, oh, you know, the Sports Illustrated and stuff, we got to remember the Photoshop piece. Mm-hmm. We got to remember that they don't look exactly like that. And, yes, they're gorgeous women. And yes, they look beautiful in bathing suits. And there's no question about it. And there are people who are born with a body that looks the way we would all, but that actually doesn't make them more beautiful. What makes you more beautiful is you being you. Is you remembering like, oh, this is who I am, and feeling the fullness of who you are in your body. And for me, literally, I feel sexy in a bikini. I cannot tell you why. Even when I'm overweight, I feel sexy in a bikini. So, and I'm telling you, it's because no, it's because I live around a pool and I always have, but that's the thing that makes me feel that way. And that doesn't mean I always feel sexy. I sometimes feel really heavy and really lumbering and cumbersome and all that kind of stuff. But what I can tell from that is it has nothing to do with my weight.
Well, let's get into, since this is the Holy Fuck podcast, the spiritual aspect of weight. Because I know both of us heard so many stories when we were in school together for our master's in spiritual psychology. Person after person would stand up, and whether it was a weight issue or some other type of physical issue, so many people, their journey through school was in relation to their body and diving into their beliefs around it and where those beliefs came from. And sometimes it was from a traumatic event. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that we never know exactly why we are where we are, but there is a nugget, something in each journey that we take with our body that is for us to learn how holy we are. Mm-hmm. And the more we can respect and honor ourselves, the easier it's going to be to eventually make a choice about what we want with our bodies. When we come from judgment, when we bring it down to this earth plane as if there's something wrong with us because we weigh 10 pounds more than Susie or 10 pounds less. I have friends who are really slender who judge themselves for being too slender or not beautiful enough or their hair's not pretty
Because did you
enough.
hear myself earlier? I said, oh, I was at that thin weight and then my boobs were saggy. Did you hear how
You just like
even that wasn't good enough. I still found a problem wrong with me.
Right. And so the question is, can we honor ourselves no matter what our bodies look like, no matter what's going on? Just honor the fact that we have a beautiful body, and then really start to generate gratitude for the fact that our bodies work and that they're really beautiful and they're powerful and that we can use them every day. And then once you're in that field where there's no judgment against and there's appreciation for, then we can actually decide, what do we want with our bodies? Do we want to be someone who works out every day so that we have this tight, muscular kind of body? Mm-hmm. Or do we want to be someone that's a little bit softer? Do women, I mean, I know a lot of women who are so happy that they're over 50 because they don't give a shit about their bodies anymore. And they're like, oh, I'm just showing up as who I am. And I don't mean they're not taking care of themselves. They are, but they're not trying to be anything they're not. They're just happy to let it be what it is. I'm not saying we're in the all the way to the letting go category, because is that really honoring ourselves either?
Well, no, because our body is our temple and it houses our soul. That's how our soul comes through. So if we start letting go of our temple and letting it fall apart and not taking care of it, then we're not giving our soul a beautiful temple to come into.
And the thing is that everyone, and I'm not saying that everyone who is large or anyone who is small or any particular size is letting go or up too uptight or anything about their body. All I'm saying is that can we transform our relationship with our body into appreciation, acceptance, loving, find out about like, oh, I would like my shoulders to be a little stronger. So what would I do if I really wanted that? It's just a choice. It's not a judgment. Or, you know, lots of women have breast surgeries. Some women do it from a place of like, I just feel like getting some new boobs. I've nursed 3 babies and I want something new. And they're completely happy. They have no issues with it. When we have a problem is almost always when it's coming from a place of lack or judgment. And it's, I'm not good enough. This is going to fix me. And sadly, the surgery never does fix it.
Right. Because they still have the same underlying issue underneath, which is, for me, my weight is my guidance system. It's how my body talks to me. When I was gaining weight, I knew, and I would say this to you often, I know it has to do with this relationship. It's my body's way of saying, get out. Because it's happened to me. Anytime I've been in a relationship where I know I'm supposed to leave it, I start getting chunky. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time where I was aware of it and made the conscious connection of, oh, my body is talking to me in this way. So I'm going to start moving toward getting out of the relationship. And it definitely took me a long time to do it, but I knew my body had something to say.
Yeah. And again, we're not saying that anybody who has a body of any particular shape and size has anything that we're not making any kinds of assumptions about anyone. We're talking about, Krista and I are talking about our own bodies and what happens with us. And I think what we're trying to say is your body is amazing and it's beautiful and it's something to be treasured and honored and respected. And yes, it's the temple for your spirit, but it's always the thing that gets you around every day. And when you get to be 58, you're going to want a body that still gets you around every day. You're going to want a body that feels good, that loves to stretch and be flexible and bend and swim and walk.
And it's certainly not going to do that if you're like cussing it out every day and not appreciating it and not loving it. I mean, when I was heavy, I was loving all of my curves and I was in gratitude for my body. And I just kept I would hold my stomach in the morning and just say, I love you. And I know you're trying to protect me. Thank you. And I would just look at all of the things that I was super excited about and appreciate those. And then I would love the parts that I knew were challenging at the moment.
The ones that were challenging you and your perception of your beauty. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. And, for all of us to really, really get present in the moment and appreciate what we've got today. There are so many people who just choose the opposite. And what if we all chose to just love the temple we were born into? And then if we feel like changing something about it and we have the control to do that, then by all means, it's a choice you get to make.
But I love how you brought attention to the fact that we really have to get present with the emotions that are underneath of it.
Absolutely.
Because I have a feeling if I didn't move into acceptance for the way my body was when it was bigger, that it would have had to have remained big in order to teach me this lesson about acceptance and loving my body no matter which size.
And also, this is how sometimes self-judgment is an interior assault on ourselves. And so whenever we're hurting ourselves, we're creating any kind of possibility of disease also. So what we really want to do, what we're really talking about, and yeah, we have the little funny story about my breasts and what that did when somebody was doing surgery and that kind of thing. But our bodies are incredible. And they're beautiful. No matter what you think of your body, believe me, it's beautiful. And no matter how you hold yourself on a scale of I'm too skinny to I'm too fat, your body is beautiful and it's serving you. And if we can get into that place as women of pure gratitude with our bodies, we can really become much more powerful in this world. When we take ourselves out before we even start a race, before we even enter, that's not fair to us. Oh, I know. I had a manifestation of an illness happening in my body a few years ago, and it was an autoimmune disease. And I just decided I wasn't going to have an autoimmune disease. And my doctor was joking. She goes, why don't you lose 5 pounds, see if it'll fix it. And so I was like, all right.
All right.
So who can't lose 5 pounds? So I lost 5 pounds and I started to get better. And so then I lost 5 more. And then in the end, I lost 40 pounds. And I don't think Krista knew me then because she's looking at me with some big eyebrows.
Like 40 pounds. I can't even imagine you. 40 pounds.
And the one picture that I had is this really silly drawing of this woman jumping in the air with 2 carrots in her hands. And it says, my body is beautiful. And that's what I used as my mantra during this whole time of just changing my health. And I'm way better at changing my health and letting my body change than dieting. I'm not really.
Oh, the minute I try to diet is the minute I gain 10 pounds. Like literally, if I say to myself, you can't have ice cream or that piece of pizza, it's like, it's done. It's like I gain weight. Like I can't take away from myself. I just have to keep telling myself, whatever I want's fine. And it seems like my body responds to it. Oh, I have a funny story. I have a friend who just blesses her food and says that if she's eating like a chocolate bar or something, she just says, "Oh, let my body enjoy this and let go of anything it doesn't need to hold on to anymore," and just releases the food into the ethers.
That's great. That's great. So yes, just remember that your body is holy, and it isn't an entity. It isn't a thing. It's actually made up of gazillion. I'm going to say that because I don't know how many cells and all mitochondria and all sorts of very cool things, which means that it's always moving. It's never static. You are never a body. You are this experience of being human in a body. Mm-hmm. And let the body serve you. Let your body be your friend. Embrace your body in whatever form it's in, and remind yourself how incredibly beautiful you are every single day. We love you guys so much.
Rock the bodies.
Rock your body. Spread the love. We love you. Have a great week. Bye. Bye.
We want to connect with all you lovers of sex, spirituality, and all things holy, but unfortunately, you've got to make the first move, baby. That means heading over to holyfuckpodcast.com to find our new episodes and all the juicy deets about Katherine and Krista. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Holy Fuck Podcast to get up-to-date info on our new episodes and current happenings. And if you are seeking a more one-on-one experience, check out Krista's offerings at KristaKimCoaching.com and visit KatherineMcClellan.com to see what's shaking in Katherine's world. Your spiritual evolution will thank you.